Welcome in. Hope you had a great weekend. Welcome to another week of People, Power, and Politics as we get ever so close to the last leg of this wild election cycle. I'm Roop Raj. We are so glad you're making us a part of your nightly routine. So many of you have. And we've noticed, whether it's live or streaming or afterwards, we don't need to tell you how important unbiased political news is in general at any given day, but especially as you get ready to make that big decision and vote, we're going to keep living up to that motto. It also goes without saying that that's a tight race right now happening in Michigan, and it's really obvious by the fact VP Harris has, count them, 6 events in our state this week. We're talking about the state of the race right now and finding out who you think would win if the big vote were held today. Also, reaction over former President Trump's Detroit diss still coming in. The Harris campaign even using his comments in their latest campaign ad, which ran in the most watched events this weekend in Michigan, the Tigers and the Lions game. But it's got us asking a broader question. What areas does Detroit still need to improve on? A Democrat and a Republican you know well are taking on that issue. But we begin tonight with Debate Night 2.0 in the race for Senate. Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin and former Congressman and U.S. Ambassador Mike Rogers squared off in Southfield. A debate aired across the state. The two candidates took on a number of issues, including gun violence. Both candidates had differing views on how to address it. Slotkin said America needs stricter gun laws. Rogers said it's about mental health.
I was representing this district where we had not one, but 2 school shootings in my district, Oxford High School and Michigan State University. There has been nothing worse in my experience than explaining PTSD to a 14-year-old who all he did was sit in his social studies class while a colleague, one of his fellow students, shot up innocent children. To me, we have to, as Democrats and Republicans, gun owners and non-gun owners, go after the #1 killer of our children in our communities, in our schools, by suicide, by accident. It is the responsibility of leaders to protect children.
We need to enforce the gun laws that we have. We also need to deal with mental health issues that are happening in our schools. This generation of Americans is under mental duress and distress like I have never seen before. And it means that we're going to have to come together on how we get ahead of these problems. Banning guns isn't going to do it. Matter of fact, the two shootings that happened here in Michigan were by handguns. Everybody talks about the other kinds of guns. We need to get at the root of the problem, which is mental health. And so if we don't tackle this mental health issue, we're going to be in trouble.
Now, both talked about the economy as well, which many of you have told us is your #1 issue headed into this election. Here's what both of them had to say about your money.
We know that the trillions and trillions of dollars of spending by the Biden-Harris administration, 100% supported by my opponent, has driven up grocery prices, gas prices, energy prices. Your housing prices have all gone up. We must get control of the outrageous and wasteful spending in Washington, D.C. We have to make ourselves energy independent. All of those votes that try to steer us away from having our own destiny decided by being energy independent is wrong. And what it's done is raised your prices at the pump, your prices at the end of the month when you're paying for energy. All of that needs to be corrected.
If there was a silver bullet that could have been fired to solve inflation, it would have been fired. So I work on 3 specific things. #1, we got to bring supply chains home and manufacturing back home to the United States. Back from China, good paying jobs, jobs with benefits, so that we can afford more of what we want to buy. #2, we got to attack the costs that are just our major parts of our budget. Healthcare, prescription drugs, child care. Think of housing, how much people pay on those things. We got to attack those costs. And then lastly, you got to save more of what you earn. That means a tax policy that actually supports the middle class.
Here's a quick pulse check on the state of the race between Slotkin and Rogers. The latest Real Clear Politics average of polls shows the Congresswoman leading by 1.9%. That's all. But polls only mean so much, and a lot can change between now and Election Day. But this does give us an idea of how close the race is and how much it mirrors the Trump-Harris race as well, which always seems to be within this kind of a spread. So party lines is a thing, and it seems like when the Senate race and the presidential race, things are falling in line in that way. That's just one of the races you'll vote in. Just what, 22 days now? Can you believe that? That's all the time the candidates have to make their pitch to you. If you're voting early, less than that, or maybe you already mailed back that absentee ballot, If that's you, you get to sit back, relax, sort of, and watch the political ads all over your TV, social media, and your mailboxes as well. Either way, we always say this show is all about you, and we mean it when we say it. So we wanted to ask you, would former President Trump or VP Harris win Michigan if the election were held today? Or is it simply too close to say? Here now, a pulse check.
I think it's still too close to call. I think it's going to be really a dead heat right now. We have a few weeks left here to kind of pull in the vote that really needs to help take the Harris campaign over the top. And I'm very hopeful that conversations this week will help really attract those that are in the city of Detroit and move the needle north of 50%.
I think it's going to be real close. Real close. It's going to be a real close race. I don't know.
Right now, I think it would be President Trump for sure. I think that he has shown an increase in momentum across groups that Democrats absolutely need in order to win this state.
What groups are those, would you say?
The New York Times ran a story this morning about how the enthusiasm among voters of color and among men is pretty low for the Democrat candidate, historically low, and the Democrat Party gets its wins by eking out margins across a number of groups, not by winning the true support of any one demographic.
Donald Trump.
Why?
Because when he was in the election last time, he was doing everything that was right and positive.
I would say it's really close to call, a little too close to call right now.
And why do you think that?
Because there's so many people, and everyone has their way that they see the different candidates.
One of my favorite things to do is head out with my cell phone, talk to people just like you and me. So if you see me out on the streets and you have a comment about anything politics related, just hit me up and you may end up on the pulse. We also asked you the question on fox2detroit.com. If you want to weigh in, just scan that QR code at the bottom right of your screen. So far, the vast majority of you who voted say former President Trump would win right now. 73% of those who were polled in this poll say that. Now, this is a non-scientific poll, and as we always say, the most important poll is the one that you're going to vote on, and then we'll tabulate that and, of course, figure out who the winner is. The campaign trail started running through Michigan right away this week with First Lady Dr. Jill Biden in Clawson today, stumping for VP Harris. Dr. Biden was at Three Cats restaurants in Clawson, where she gave a fired-up speech for Democrats to get out and vote.
We have to work harder than we've ever worked before. We have to push further than we've ever pushed in the past. We have to meet this moment as if our rights are at stake, because they are. As if our freedoms are on the line, because they are. With determination, with persistence, with urgency, we will elect a new generation of leaders. We will choose a new way forward. So let's go elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
Dr. Biden's visit is just the first of many on the Democratic side through the Great Lakes state. More about that in just a second. First, though, former President Trump and Vice President Harris held dueling rallies in another key swing state today, Pennsylvania. It is critical that they win Pennsylvania. Trump was in the southeastern suburbs of Philadelphia. Harris was in Erie. Pennsylvania is the most visited state by both campaigns, seeing 46 between the two candidates. 46 visits. The next highest state, you guessed it, Michigan, with 33 combined visits. And Vice President Harris will add 6 more to that total this week. Buckle up, there's a lot. It all starts with a radio town hall with Charlemagne the God. That'll air tomorrow afternoon, just about 5 o'clock. After that, she'll be in Grand Rapids Thursday and Friday before heading east on I-96, stopping over in Lansing, my old stomping grounds, and then Oakland County on Friday as well. And then she'll be in the Motor City on Saturday. She's also squeezing in an interview with Fox News on Wednesday. She'll sit down with Bret Baier, the host of Special Report, at 6 o'clock that night. Harris has been ramping up her media appearances the last few weeks after being heavily criticized for not doing serious interviews, only taking softballs. That will change with Bret Baier, and many would argue after 60 Minutes as well. That same day, former President Trump will also do a town hall on Harris Faulkner's Fox News show. That'll be filmed in Georgia and air Wednesday at 11 a.m. According to Fox News, the town hall will focus on women's issues as well as news of the day as well. We are diving back into former President Trump's diss of Detroit. Next, conservative James David Dixon and City Council member Coleman Young II with their thoughts on the comment and what the city should do to keep growing. You're watching The Pulse on Fox 2. Back now on the Pulse, looking at all things people, power, and politics in a busy election year. Former President Trump's comments about Detroit last week still being talked about after saying that the whole country will follow Detroit's path if VP Harris is elected. But some are saying the media and many Democrats jumped onto the comment without taking stock in some truth to his feelings, the president's feelings. Joining us now, conservative commentator James David Dixon and Detroit City Council member Coleman Young II. We thank you both for joining us here today.
Thank you.
So I want to show you, we talk about this show being all about people. We get a lot of mail and we go through all of it. And this is some of the email we got after you heard former President Trump's comments saying that this country is heading towards Detroit's destiny. This person named Jatanya Mitchell said, "My name is Jatanya. I'm a Democrat who is not in support of Trump and his madness. I hope this evening on your show, The Pulse, you'll talk about the comments that Trump spoke today in Detroit. It's insulting that he would come to our city and then talk trash about us. You should call him out on it. Ask what residents think and have to say about Trump's big mouth. Thank you." One email. Another email we got looked more like this. And this is on the opposite end of the spectrum. Grace writes to us saying, "Roop, Trump's comments about the city of Detroit was a missed opportunity to ask him if he gets into office what he will do to help this rundown city called Detroit. Shame on all that decided to turn this into such a negative." Let's go ahead and bring our esteemed councilman into the mix here and ask you what you think about what Grace said here. She says this is a missed opportunity to frame this all one way and say that all he's doing is dogging Detroit, when in fact Detroit has had a path that has been tough. There have been real challenges, and there still are some real challenges. Do you think the media and many Democrats got it wrong? They're just looking to slam Trump?
Well, first of all, Roop, always good to see you.
Always good to see you.
It's been too long, man. It's been too long,
way
brother.
Too long.
First of all, let me just say this. Listen, I think this was a missed opportunity. And let me say this. I think that this is an opportunity for Trump to talk about the good things that happened in the city of Detroit. The fact that we tore down 25,000 dangerous buildings. The fact that we've fixed up 170 parks and recreation centers. That crime is at a 57-year low. Let's see, homicides at 57-year low. The unemployment is at a 33-year low. He could have talked about that. Instead, what he decided to do is engage in these stereotypical, racist, white supremacist tropes, talking to people trying to reach that neo-Nazi base of, if you don't do anything or if you don't vote for me, we're going to look like Detroit, the biggest, largest African-American represented city in America that's on the comeback trail. Almost $3 billion in home value wealth, an increase in the city of Detroit for the residents that own homes in the city. We are a comeback story. He could have talked about that, and he could have talked about policies to continue that. Instead, he wanted to engage in the same rundown, worn out white supremacist racist tropes that he does.
James David Dixon, you wrote a very compelling article that argued the other side of this coin here, saying that essentially anybody who doesn't believe that Detroit still has some tremendous challenges is not doing justice to Detroit and the children of Detroit. We have things to fix here, is what you proposed in your article. But do you believe that Trump could have been better with his words and the way he framed all of this, in a sense, pretending as though there's been no progress in the city of Detroit?
I don't think you need to say there's been no progress to say it's not enough progress. Look, Detroit is still digging out of a hole dug in 1967. We've lost 1 million people since the 50s. This is not a normal thing. So our city has challenges. Our city's still violent. I think about just a few months ago, we had the 4th of July fireworks on Belle Isle. Mayor Mike Duggan closes down the riverfront parks. You can't cover the VIPs and the normal people at the parks at the same time. Then we see the very next week, even after bragging about these low homicide rates, what do we have? 21 people shot at once, 2 of them killed, and Mike Duggan says we need common sense block party reform. These are not normal things. So no, Detroit's not okay the way it is.
Is it normal, though, to have in that same city, the same framework, the same police department, by the way, led in part in terms of the reforms by Republican James Craig, who ran for governor, have 700,000 plus people over 3 days on the streets of Detroit, spend their money, feel safe, have a great time in Detroit, and actually look at Detroit in a different light? Why wasn't that considered in Trump's comments, do you think?
That's the norm. That's the expectation. You should be able to go to a place and exist safely there. That this is something that we think is noteworthy kind of just shows how far we have to come in Detroit. What happened at the draft, that should be the floor. what we've seen in recent years where the riverfront parks, all these, Greektown used to have some crime troubles, and this is even downtown. So Detroit has too far to come to act like it's just okay and Trump was just being mean.
So Councilman, what?
Yeah, please let me know. I'm chomping at the bit here, Rube.
But do you see the challenges that Detroit still has? Of course you do. You've mentioned
Absolutely.
that. But you're saying to focus on that too much was the problem?
No, what I'm saying, first of all, the biggest room in the world is a room for improvement. Of course we have areas we can improve upon, but to act as if we hadn't had any improvement at all, I love my good sir and brother, but those are anecdotal stories. I remember when those were actually backed up by statistics. That's not what the statistics say. They're saying that we had the lowest homicides in 57 years, the lowest rate of unemployment in 33 years. Detroit is not the city it was in 1967, and to act as though still we're in this place, and to act, quite frankly, as if Donald Trump knows about what's going on, or there's the guy who thought that planes flew in the American Revolution and wanted to solve hurricanes by nuking them. This is not someone who is well-versed in the history of Detroit or anything in America for that matter. This is a clear message for him to reach out to white supremacists by talking about this black city as saying that what we're seeing here will happen across the country if you don't elect me. It's race baiting and it's wrong.
Mayor Duggan talked to the Pulse exclusively on Friday, and he says when he first heard the comment, he actually thought it was a compliment to Detroit. And the reason he thought that was partially because he says, should the whole country turn like Detroit? Maybe that's not such a bad thing because it's a story of revival, a story of turning things around and still having challenges. Do you see any credence in that at all, James?
Obviously, things are not as bad as they were. Downtown right now is a light show. But this is still a city where 95% of 8th graders can't read at grade level. So I'm pretty light on the pats on the back for Mayor Duggan and anyone else. And now we see Duggan is angling for a promotion to the governor's office. Based on what? He said, judge me by the population of this city. 690,000 people when you're elected. After a decade of Duggan, we got 620,000 people. What's the Mike Duggan success story? I'd love to hear it.
Go ahead.
I'm not trying to be the spokesperson for the mayor's office. They have more capable
because you went hard at him when you ran against him.
Yeah, but the people voted, and I expect the will of the vote because I actually respect democracy, unlike Trump. One. Secondly,
our democracy.
Secondly, I'm not done. Secondly, the city actually grew in population. And so when he was talking about judging based on population, we have seen growth in population for the first time in 40 years. So again, what he's talking about, this is stuff.
You're going to get the dead cat bounce, absolutely.
Not to mention that poverty has been reduced from 45% to 34% in the city of Detroit.
That's still one out of every 3 human beings
but that's better
in a 600,000 person city.
James, that's where we were before.
That's where we were before. Hold on one second. I'm going to stop you both for a moment.
Progress.
Okay, so progress we see.
Right.
Still, as you say, the biggest room in the world is for improvement. But one moment, Donald Trump, when he spoke to me in May, which was not that long ago, I said to him, hey, what do you think about Detroit and all the success stories? I said, your friend Roger Goodell had nothing but great things to say about it. And then he said back to me, right here on Fox 2, he says, I love Detroit. Detroit is doing great. It's a beautiful thing. I love to see what I saw.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. He then comes to the Detroit Economic Club and changes his stance to say that this place will turn into essentially the worst place in the world. The rest of the country will if it follows Detroit's path. There's a contrast there.
I don't think so. I mean, let's think about who he was talking to. He was talking to a group of suburban Detroit businessmen. If anyone knows that they don't want their community to be like Detroit, it's people in the suburbs of Detroit. There's a fact. We have 10 million people who live in Michigan. 9.4 million of them live elsewhere than Detroit. It's not because they all love Detroit and they just can't find housing. There's plenty of housing for anyone who wants it. They don't want to live there.
But out of respect to you, I will say many of my friends who are news anchors in New Orleans, Philadelphia, Baltimore, New York, Chicago don't live within the city. Many people live in the suburbs. That doesn't mean you can. They're not mutually exclusive. You can still love a city and not live in it.
Yeah, you can love it from a safe distance.
But can I say
a place that would educate your kid and be safe.
20 seconds left.
Again, he's stuck in the past.
Safety and education.
The people that are coming into the city are people that are coming from the suburbs into the city because they see the growth and the economic development and the change that is happening. And let me say this. These were suburban businessmen that were investing in the city of Detroit.
One-word answer right now. If the election was held tomorrow morning, who would win Michigan? Harris or Trump? James?
Trump.
Harris. It's going to be tight, though.
But you believe it's going to be tight?
It's going to be Harris.
Listen, you're the ones who are going to make the decision. You hear from a lot of great newsmakers on this show. I want to thank both of these guys for joining us here. Respected guests on The Pulse, James David Dixon, Coleman Young Jr. Thank you so much. Next on The Pulse, we're getting you caught up to on some big stories you might have missed this weekend, including a back and forth between Trump and Harris about health. You're watching The Pulse on Fox 2. And welcome back to The Pulse, covering all things people, power, and politics as we inch very close to Election Day. The Pulse took a break this weekend, but we know political news just does not. And between the Tigers, Lions, and a great slate of college football games this weekend, understandable if you sort of zoned out. It's probably healthy to do here and there. That's why every Monday night we get you up to speed with some of the big political stories from the last few days, so you don't have to go searching on your phone. Throw that phone on the couch. In case you missed it, doctors came out with some news about VP Harris. According to her doctor, she's in excellent health and has the physical and mental stamina to be president. Her campaign is trying to draw a contrast between her and former President Trump, who has shared limited information about his health, something the vice president talked about at Joint Base Andrews this weekend.
I invite the public to watch his rallies and be the decision maker on his acuity. And you will see in his rallies how he goes off on tangents, how he is not focused on the needs of the American people with solutions to the issues that concern them the most.
Well, the former president clapped back on his Truth Social account, saying he thinks Harris should pass a cognitive test, claiming she's, quote, slow and lethargic when answering questions. Speaking of the former president, he campaigned in a heavily Democratic state, California. Appearing at the Coachella Music Festival, Trump likely won't win the state's votes, but he's trying to appeal to rural voters in California. He painted a grim picture about the state of the Golden State.
Today, California has the highest inflation, the highest taxes, the highest gas prices, the highest cost of living, the most regulations, the most expensive utilities, the most homelessness, the most crime, the most decay, and the most illegal aliens. Other than that, I think you're doing quite well, actually.
Trump also attended a roundtable for Hispanic voters in Las Vegas this weekend. And finally tonight, President Biden was in St. Petersburg, Florida over the weekend, just days after it was slammed by yet another hurricane. At least 11 people were killed when Hurricane Milton struck, less than 2 weeks after Helene caused major damage. During his visit, the president announced a major investment in the state's power grid.
I'm proud to announce $612 million to 6 new cutting-edge projects to support communities impacted by Hurricane Helene and Milton. That includes $47 million for Gainesville Regional Utilities and another $47 million for Florida Power and Light. This funding will not only restore power, but will make the region's power system stronger and more capable and reduce the frequency and duration of power outages while extreme weather events become more frequent.
Vice President Harris got involved in hurricane relief herself over the weekend. She joined this packing party, putting together care kits for people impacted by Hurricane Helene. Well, that is the Pulse for tonight. Battleground with SE Cup is next. We're with you every step of the way on this ride. I'm Roop Raj. We'll see you tomorrow night.